What's up, Starcraft fans? Today we're doing the tier list for binary choice on Mal Warfare. Brian, let's hear the mutators.
Mal Warfare is the map where we have to escort Orana's transport as it purifies security terminals from a rogue AI. We win the game if she purifies all 5 terminals, but we lose if the enemies or suppression towers destroy the transport. Reanimators spawn from enemy buildings and revive dead guys. And enemies, including the Reanimators, are immune to either you or your ally.
Cool. So, with me are Tutu, or rather, Sticksbender and Herman. How are you guys today?
Good.
Great.
Neither of us is Tutu, though. Can confirm.
Yes. Tutu's actually not off. Tutu's actually online. He just doesn't want to do Polarity, so that's fair. Anyway,
That's understandable.
Sticksbender, how are we going to rank the commanders this week?
Let's see. Ability to get around is great. Ability to tank when your allied commander is sluggish is great. Shared mobility is really great to help your ally get around.
Yes.
And yeah, basically you're going to be very dependent on your ally this week because the Reanimators themselves have polarity, and then they can revive stuff that will be not their polarity.
Yes.
So basically, both players have to send stuff to deal with every Reanimator, and it's going to be a huge, huge pain. And if your ally and you aren't on the same page, I don't know, man, this is going to be bad. This is going to be rough.
How about you, Herman?
Oh, so I totally agree with what Sixbender just said, and I just want to say that this mutation is not like Railroad Switch. Railroad Switch really focus on the like your DPS and yeah, like the mobility is not a big problem for that mutation, but for this one, mobility and multitask is really important. Yeah, and also if you playing with some commander that can cage the reanimator, which will make the mutation become really easy because there will only be a polarity mutator. Yeah.
Yes, caging the Reanimator is a possibility. However, I played this with a few commanders. So far, I've noticed that it's actually easier to not cage the Reanimators, just react when you see them. Maybe because, I don't know, maybe they're weaker in the games I've played, but I noticed that, yes, it's actually easier once you have the Reanimators caged, but prior to that, getting the cage feels as if it's sometimes more difficult than doing it just fighting the Reanimators. How about you say to that?
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
the reason that Reanimator caging is a pain is because this map does have a decently fast early game with like Arana going out and getting waves, slamming into her right away. And in order to get the Reanimator cage set up, you're basically adding on top of that, you have to lure something into your base, kill it behind a wall where you can get the Reanimator cage set up, cage the Reanimators there, and then you have to get them all set up before the first attack wave reaches your base at 4 minutes. Otherwise, that attack wave is going to have to be lured all the way behind the wall and out of range to the Reanimators. It's a huge pain. There are 2 ways that you can get a Reanimator cage that are much easier than that. One of which is because you can use what I hear a lot of people call the virtual Reanimator cage, where what you do is instead you bait air units over unpassable terrain and shoot them there. And then the Reanimators will get stuck rubbing their face against the edge of the pathable terrain trying to get at that air unit. So if you have some kind of global mobility to maybe like in the final back base behind the final lock where you don't even have to clear, if you can like lure the carriers or battlecruisers there over unpassable terrain and shoot them, then you could get a Reanimator to get stuck there. And then you wouldn't have to worry because those Reanimators can get stuck over the course of the mission. And so you would just get a gradual decrease in the number of Reanimators coming at you.
That's interesting.
But the other one is that, well, we're going to have to start the commanders for this, and it's conveniently the first commander. Abathur's got a tool for this. It's called Vipers.
Yes.
Let us talk about Abathur.
Actually, I was thinking before being with Abathur, I was actually thinking, what if we have a pairing of Stukov and Karax, where Stukov rushes out Overlord speed and then does fly to the back base, and Karax snipes an air unit, We can, yeah, maybe that strategy you talked about is possible with well, just an example, those two. Maybe others can do it as well. That sounds interesting. Then something might be worth trying out. But yes, let's begin. Abathur, what do we have him?
So Abathur. So now I'm gonna say the situation in which we don't want to cage the reanimator, right? Like we want to talk about caging stuff anymore now from now on. And so talking about Abathur, I mean his brutalisk has mobility, like you can just deep tunnel, but how to get the first brutalisk becomes a problem here. Yeah.
Absolutely. Your ally has to help you cage, or rather
Yeah,
bait,
and don't forget reanimator. So if you kill a unit or your ally kill a unit, the reanimator just start to spawn. And
earlier.
like if you just luring do the toxic nest trick and to start luring enemy like at 1 minute, so then the reanimator will just come at 1 minute. So well, I don't think Avatar did really good in this mutation. I mean his army, like when he get enough biomass, his army is really tanky. Yeah, that's the truth. You can just help your ally to tank, but how to get there is a big problem in my mind. So,
Yeah.
letter in my mind is like a D or maybe E. I don't think he did really well in this mutation, unless you K to the reanimator. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Sixpender?
I think Abathur goes a little higher than that, purely on the basis of he actually can cage reanimators in a practical fashion because
Vipers.
even after stuff starts spawning, you can still abduct the reanimator into the
Yeah.
cage.
Yeah.
So what you're probably going to want to do with Abathur is you are going to, during the first lock, when there's the first tower, you'll let the first tower shoot Arana, because as long as it's shooting Arana, the next attack wave also won't spawn. No attack waves will spawn as long as, like, when it pauses the progress on the main objective, it actually pauses the progress on everything, including the attack wave timings.
Yeah.
So that gives you plenty of time to put all the reanimators into a little cage with Vipers and then proceed with the mission. The big thing is, remember that the tower starts speeding up its firing at Arana the longer it's alive. So I would say around like 3,500 hit points is when you have to make the cutoff that you have to kill that tower. You're going to just die.
Yes, the transport itself revives 5,000 health for each terminal. So you actually want to kill the suppression tower before it goes below 3k so that it revives for
Yeah.
full health.
And
So,
Supernal Tower doesn't have polarity, so you both can go kill them. Yeah.
but yes, where do
So-
you have Abathur?
I think that purely because of that ability to cage so practically, he goes up in tier. But yes, the early game is going to be incredibly painful, and you really shouldn't be even trying to like farm out a Brutalisk until after the first attack wave comes, which is really late. But like you have to, because otherwise you're going to spawn reanimators early, and you're going to make your life so much harder. I would recommend that. Generally, the recommendation for Abathur is whenever you can't get good early game via ultimate evolutions, your early game plan is literally spine crawlers. I am not kidding. This is what I discovered when crash coursing myself on Abathur. So yeah, lots of make like 4 or 5, 6 spine crawlers early. Use toxic nests to give creep for them to be able to get around. And I mean, you're like C or D tier, because I'd say probably C, maybe D.
Yeah, because like what you just mentioned, you can just after
You can
it's up dog.
cage.
Yeah.
If you and your ally aren't on the same page too, the other problem is if your ally kills the suppression tower too fast, well, good luck with the cage. It's gonna be
Yes.
hard.
Yes.
Yeah, or if your ally just kill the reanimator in the cage because he didn't know the skill.
Yes. Or if you accidentally have an enemy unit get lured into range of the cage, and now you have a unit that's infinitely resurrecting.
Well, unless you
So,
just
yeah.
bait that unit once it revives
Yeah,
further
you have
away.
to abduct the unit out. Yeah.
And then you
the point is,
misclick and then you abduct the reanimator out.
I feel like going like C tier, I think.
Are you okay with
Yes.
C, Herman?
Yeah, that's fair.
I actually was thinking C as well, but the more I hear about how awful he is, the more I feel like, yeah, maybe D isn't that bad, but not bad of a call for Abathur, but since both of you are okay with C,
That bad, no, but C is fine.
we'll have him in C. Alarak, where do we have him?
You're bad at being in multiple places at once. Your army is sluggish, fragile. Doesn't sound like he has anything really going for him here.
He does have something going for him. Overcharge no longer shoots at Polarity enemies.
That's probably not going to kill Reanimators, though, so you're gonna...
Yeah.
Basically, Alarak, if he just plays Whack a Reanimator all game, he will struggle to keep up with the Reanimators, let alone actually playing the mission and, killing enemy bases and attack waves, going for the main objective. At least Alarak has good crowd control with Destructive Wave on the hero unit. Yeah, it's probably going to be pretty bad. So I would say he's probably in like D or E range, I would think. I don't know.
What do you think, Herman?
I agree with Swann, and I gave him a D. It's really hard for him to actually kill the Reanimator. He does have overcharge, so you have to build like pylon everywhere. Almost everywhere. So if you see a Reanimator just coming from a suppression tower, you have to just go there and then give a overcharge to the pylon so that and it can just kill the... If the Reanimator is yours, you can kill it. But if it's not yours, you won't hope your ally kill the Reanimator like in 1 minute. I forget like how long did the overcharge go? Like how long did it keep?
I believe the overcharge lasts for 30 seconds.
I think so.
Okay, so you ally have to kill.
Wait, no. It's a 90-second cooldown. It lasts for 45 seconds, I think.
Oh, okay. So it's 45 seconds. So you ally have like 45 seconds to kill it. Yeah. And also there is a skill that not really a skill. You can upgrade the one of the ability in your forge. It can make Alarak's basic attack stun non-heroic unit.
Yes.
And Reanimator is not a heroic unit. So if a Reanimator just spawn like at the face of Alarak, you can just continue attacking him, the Reanimator, so it will be stunned, and hope your ally just come and kill it.
As long as Alarak happens to be in the area. Sure.
Yeah. And
note that you'll have to manually tell your Alarak to attack it if it's the wrong polarity, but you can do that and it will stun it.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you really want to use Alarak this week, I would say just go with mass West workers. Yeah.
We're of one mind here, Herman. I was actually thinking just soloing the actual objective with the mothership and a few destroyers, and at home you can have your army with either Slayers or Wrathwalkers. You just defend with that army while the mothership and Alarak and destroy whatever destroyers you can muster across the map doing stuff. But yes, where do you have him?
D. Also D.
All right. Arcturus, where do we have him?
So Minsk. Actually, I don't think he is really good on this map, because on Railroad Switch he's really good because he can use Commanding Strike to just let the enemy AFK. But in this map, it's really large, and if you just start your ESOs at home, you can only shoot the enemies on the third tower and probably second tower, but you cannot reach the last one. I mean, this week means you probably want to, you don't want to use ESOs to shoot the enemy at far back. You just want to shoot the enemy where your ally is. Like if your ally is pushing, you might want to just use ESOs to help him to push. And if your ally is defending Arena, so you might just want to help him defend. And I would say letter like B or something.
All right. How about you, Stixbender?
Unless I'm mistaken, if you stick your ESOs just north of the right expansion, you can reach everything except the very last lock. Just with that, just straight up. And even for the very last lock, you can reach all the towers.
Yeah, you don't want to destroy the last base anyway, because
yeah, basically it will mean that you can reach pretty much every suppression tower with your ESOs, and that's really helpful.
That is
really
helpful.
Yes.
As for the Contaminated Strike thing, yeah, in general, you can't rely on Contaminated Strike to completely carry with making enemies go AFK. So the Contaminated Strike thing, not the greatest. ESOs as support and to blow up suppression towers, that's pretty good.
I would actually argue Earth Splitters just to snipe the suppression towers.
Just basically take advantage of the fact that Earth Splitters don't do friendly fire, just like everything else in co-op. So you can just have them support you with supporting fire while you have a bio ball. And
Cool.
you're going to operate primarily off your bio ball. I'd put him in B. I think he's quite decent. You just move your bio ball, and as long as you and your ally are coordinated, your bio ball will do great, and your Earth Splitters can give some decent support.
Cool. Artanis, where do we have him?
He does have Fenix, and Fenix can lift Reanimators, which means he has a way of stunning Reanimators, and that way of stunning Reanimators is a very fast unit. If the Reanimator belongs to your ally, at least your Fenix can just keep it lifted for a prolonged period and stare awkwardly. Other than that, you will probably either want Mass Tempest or more likely Mass Dragoon. Dragoons are faster, so that's why more likely Mass Dragoon. And you're basically going to be working with your ally all the time, just both being a death ball together, and then having like a hit squad of Fenix, which can go Reanimator hunting. I would say, again, probably a B tier. There's an argument for A tier here, but the biggest argument against A tier is that Artanis just isn't that strong straight up in a head-on engagement. So it's like, if you lose too much to Polarity enemies, you might just flop and die.
Yeah, not Snowball.
But that's like the only thing keeping him out of A tier, I think.
How about you, Herman?
Oh, well, I actually gave him an A, like in my mind. Yeah. So what I was thinking is that he is really good at multitask because, like what you just said, you can just warp in some Dragoons and help your ally to kill the Reanimator. And the emergency shield really helps you and your ally, right, when you push together.
But that kind of has you on an equal contribution role as your ally. This tier list is more about carrying, like doing a bit more than just being an equal helper. His Garden Shell and Shield Overcharge, as Herman mentioned, would be helpful here. So the question is that enough to put them in A? Herman apparently thinks so. What do you think, Sticksbender?
The other thing is that he can, as I said, you can lift Reanimators, which is a stun. Being able to stun Reanimators and tell them to shut up and stop summoning stuff, even if they're not your Polarity, is really good. Also, being able to just summon where your ally is by just warping in a new wave of Dragoons where your ally is means that even if your ally is making very questionable positioning decisions, you can still accommodate that. You don't get screwed because your ally made some questionable decisions. I think you need to put value, CGG, when like carrying against Polarity, you need to put value onto the ability to accommodate your ally making a mistake. Like if your ally does something weird,
that's a good point.
Able to go with that more efficiently, because otherwise you're just going to be waiting for an ally who's good enough that you would have won with any commanders you vicked.
So does that still put him in B, or do you think he's A already?
I thought he could go in either A or B.
In this week, you don't really want to use any like top bar like Solar Bombardment or like Nuclear Annihilation at really far back.
All right. Dehaka, where do we have him?
I think Dehaka is actually doing something this week. Like he can do something this week, but you can't really go leveling up, right? Because if you just eat one unit, the Reanimators will just come. Yeah, he has great primal worms. Just use that to help your ally kill the Reanimator really fast. And you can also spread Impalers. And you can also use the Creeper Host to snipe the Suppression Tower. But no, I don't really recommend Creeper Host this week. I think Mutalics are really good in this week. So because Mutalics can tank a little bit, I guess, and because he has a revive. And you maybe want to use P3 because you have another Dehaka.
Double Dehaka? Double the power.
Dehaka.
Yes.
You can use the Dehaka to help your ally. Use Dehaka help your ally to like multitask and eat the Reanimator, and use Dehaka to push, because the level of Dehaka won't affect the drones you use to revive the hub.
You can do the low drone. You can do the discount revive trick by keeping the Haka low level and Zoyahaka having all the essence, so that when Zoyahaka dies, you revive with just 4 drones, which is pretty neat. So where do you have him?
I think I have him in top B, I think.
How about you, Sticksbender?
I think you guys are forgetting that P1 is comically good at buffing your ally, like a stupid amount. No matter how bad at macro your ally is, you'll make their 3 Marines somehow manage to kill their entire half of the units because P1 Dehaka. Like, basically, that's what I would say. Is you want to use P1 Dehaka here. and you want to buff the heck out of your ally so that they are going to be able to kill their half of the stuff no matter what. Because the problem is, if you try to use P3 Dehaka, firstly, if you make any mistake on one of the two fronts, then both Dehakas die. So I guess you're going to have a hard time licking the Reanimator now when you lose the front Dehaka. And two, if you send one Dehaka to go after your ally to kill the Reanimator, even if the Reanimator is yours and you lick the Reanimator, great.
It's
But
a
now
1 minute
there's all the
cooldown.
units the Reanimator reanimated that are also yours, and you don't have anything to kill them.
You can slap them down or stomp on them, or yeah, but point take. So where do you have him?
I would put him as A tier with P1. P1 is really good.
All right. What do you think, Herman?
Yeah, I kind of forget P1 though. So
All right. Phoenix, where do you have him?
So one good thing is you can go P2 Phoenix, and you can throw champions at things. You don't have to keep all 6 champions together, by the way. Remember that. And also, you can throw the champions away. If it dies to things that aren't your polarity, oh no. Anyway.
So where do you have him?
I feel like Phoenix can go in B. He's got the tools to be able to work to do his job correctly and work with his ally. And he doesn't, have to worry too much about army strength because P2 champions are really strong.
How about you, Herman?
I also put him in B, and I have a question. Can the Arbiter freeze the Reanimator?
Yes.
If there is a Reanimator, it's not yours, and you can just freeze it and tell your ally, come here. Or you can just type, like, come here and signal that.
Or, remember, you have your Arbiter can just ring your ally.
Yeah.
You just grab them and say, get over here.
I would argue that that's more effective, because if you freeze it, your ally can also just choose to ignore your request to kill that Reanimator. I force you to be good. So, still B?
I would personally put him in B. He could go in A because of the Arbiter suit, but
yeah,
it would basically be because of the Arbiter suit.
If Arbiter doesn't have mana, like if the ability doesn't cost any mana, probably will be A. Yeah.
Oh well.
But it costs mana. Yeah.
To be fair, there's also an argument that you might want to go P1 instead of P2. This means that you have to stick with your ally more and you have to worry more about losing stuff, but it means your Arbiter generates energy faster, and your Arbiter automatically takes itself off the field but doesn't put itself on cooldown, so it's always going to be taking itself off the field and letting itself regenerate energy without you having to worry about, I accidentally left my Arbiter on the field. Now it's the energy. In fact, honestly, on second thought, probably should just be using P1 instead of P2. And at that point, he's just a death ball army moving around, but with so much ability to teleport. It's on. You know what?
Yeah, that's more substance.
On second thought, P2 is B, but I think P1 might be A. The Arbiter is good. Use the Arbiter.
Okay, so do you agree, Herman?
Have more attack damage. Yeah, do more damage.
Do you agree, Herman?
Yeah. I mean, the P1's advantage is that your suit, or maybe your Phoenix has more damage. Yeah.
But in this case, the advantage of P1 is the fact that it makes your suit regenerate energy faster.
Oh yes, yeah.
Because the big thing you want your suit for isn't for killing; it's for ally get over here.
Mobility.
Yeah.
Force your ally to have mobility, whether he wants it or not. You can have a Stukov ally, you can have a Zagara ally, and nope, you are Kerrigan.
A P3 Stukov would almost be ideal here, because it's just like, I'm gonna grab a chunk of your infested, and you won't even notice that it's missing.
Yeah, he probably won't.
He won't care. Yeah.
The thing of P3 Stukov, he wouldn't even miss him.
But that's what I'm saying. Alone, a P3 Stukov or a Zagara, a P1 Zagara, might have mobility issues, but with a Phoenix ally, who can just recall them at will, that is largely negated, as long as they're not move commanding the army right afterward. But so, do you think we can put him in A?
I'm quite happy putting him in A.
Yeah, it has to be P1, definitely. Yeah.
All right, that sounds good. Without prestige, does he go under the B?
I think P0 also would go into A, to be honest. Is just your Arbiter has less energy, a lot less energy, so it's going to be a bit of a pain. You have to be on top of switching. Basically, if you don't have P1, make sure that on cooldown you're switching off the Arbiter. You want your Arbiter in its battery station. You want the Arbiter stuck in the charging station as much as possible.
Yes.
So in that case, the no prestige is better than the second prestige, just because the army has more substance to it?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Herman?
Yeah, I think so.
Because
Yeah.
and because the second prestige has to protect the shell farm, and the first prestige doesn't. It just has a death ball.
I think we've had this discussion before over protecting the shell farm. I think it's not as difficult as you make it out to be, especially if you have a conservator and a big enough shell farm that can kind of fend for itself.
It's not too difficult protecting a shell farm, except when some of the enemies shooting that shell farm are literally immune to you.
Yeah, Polarity.
Can't we just use the arbiter and force your ally to be there? Or better yet, if your arbiter is in the front, then just summon the farm a bit closer to where your ally is, so that you don't have to worry about him being there because he's already there.
Do that. You're wasting a lot of arbiter energy. You don't want to be wasting that, but yes. The problem with the problem with that is that if you summon your ally to your shell farm, you might be creating problems where it's like, well, we were pushing in with the objective into the next base, and now the objective's dying because we protected the shell farm. But if you recall the shell farm forward, then oh yeah, those things that were shooting my shell farm, now they're shooting my mineral line.
Wait, are we talking about keeping the shell farm at home? I don't think it's.
But if you recall the shell farm away from the things that are shooting at them, the units that got reanimated, they're not going to suddenly chase after the shells towards the front line. They were behind front lines hitting the shell farm. You recall the shell farm out of the way, they're just going to keep going towards your base.
So from what I've experienced playing this mutation, as long as we clear the first bonus area without necessarily acting on the first bonus, the Reanimators largely never wander into our mineral lines because we clear forward and we mostly intercept the Reanimators that try to walk forward anyway just by clearing forward. Is that not what you experience?
It's a RNG thing. Like, because
I have good RNG?
in the first lock there is like 2 suppression tower spawn point, but you only have 1 suppression tower. So the other one has a small possibility to spawn Reanimator actually.
Yeah, it's a small possibility. It's a small probability. But as long as you don't clear the rear base, that probability is small enough that you can kind of count on it not spawning from that one unused suppression tower. I don't know. Maybe yeah, go ahead.
Another problem I'd point out is if you're using P2 specifically, your army lacks girth, so there's more chance of a Reanimator just slipping by because the Reanimator doesn't have an attack or anything, so it'll just walk past you.
You know,
if you're units and you don't notice.
I've been thinking. You know how there's a shortcut basically from Player 2's expansion to the 4th terminal? We can kind of wall that off, right? With just buildings, pylons, or even hold position.
You can.
So
it's not a terrible idea.
Yeah, we can wall off with production or something, and just kill one of those gateways later on to make sure that the Reanimators don't slip by that area. I think that's something to consider.
There is one awkward thing that there's a tower that spawns there, and there's an army that will spawn next to that tower, which could make things awkward.
That could actually make things awkward. So just maybe put the wall forward enough, or you could bait the enemies to make sure that the tower doesn't. Well, you can kind of let that wall go down once that tower you're thinking about in the 4th set or in the 4th terminal spawns there, because once you're at the 4th terminal, you can intercept every single Reanimator that comes in between the 4th terminal and the 5th terminal. That choke point, that pathway around the south of the map, you can kind of intercept all the Reanimators through there. So you don't need to worry about keeping the wall alive anymore because it's past the point where your army is. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but
yeah,
I think
it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's beside the point. So no prestige is still A. First prestige is definitely A, and second prestige is B. Is that what we're saying?
That's what I'm gonna say. It would be a high B, like Herman originally said. It would be a high B. Like he's a solid B with P2.
Yes.
But I actually think it's worse than the other ones. Honestly.
Worse than the other ones? Interesting.
Yes. P1 is better. Yeah.
Cool. P1 is the best. P1 is very much the best.
All right.
P1 is really good.
This is where Fenix earns his Akon dollars. Han and Horner, where do we have him?
Han and Horner, I believe he can't do anything at all. You can snipe a Reanimator which is yours by using 3 strike fighters, but if it's not yours, because HNH doesn't have any static defense.
I used battlecruisers as Horner, and whenever a Reanimator appeared, I just made a battlecruiser teleport there and made it not a thing. I don't think it was that difficult. I mean, I'm not saying they're great. I'm saying they're not can't do anything level.
So basically, what you're arguing is that they're not F tier; they're only E tier.
Not.
Oh, yeah.
I'm actually saying they could be as high as D, but yeah, not great either.
Well, and you can actually use the space station to snipe the special tower because they are not heroic structures. I think maybe P1 is good in this week. That's what I think. So you use P1 and just get Mass Reapers and Hellions and Hellbat.
That's what Tutu recommended. Use it first prestige. I used the second one.
Maybe he is like, Horner is like D in this week, I guess.
That's what I'm thinking. How about you, Sixbender?
I agree. I would agree with P1. Being able to just drop mag mines on a Reanimator is much more efficient than using strike fighters for it. And it also gives you the ability to just reinforce your ally in a pinch when it's like, can you kill this? Sure. Summons mag mines, blows it up.
Yes.
I would say Reaper Battlecruiser. That I believe is the most well-rounded Han and Horner comp. Is just Reaper Battlecruiser personally. Whether you're P1 or P2. With P2, by the way,
so expensive
you don't have that many minerals lying around. Oh, well, P1, yeah, they're so expensive, but that's okay because you have like 2 or 3 battle cruisers, and the actual fighting attack waves, that's your Reapers. The battle cruisers are just DPS support there. The value of the battle cruisers is to give extra. It's to give extra like basically backline, so that if the Reapers get cut down in numbers in a prolonged engagement, the battle cruisers can continue to provide damage. Plus, the battle cruisers existing gives the Reapers a DPS boost, so that's cool. Thanks, Han and Horner level 15. You actually did something, sort of.
Yay!
It's such a tiny bonus. I would say E, but I could see them in D. Just Reaper Battlecruiser Ball is decent, and you do have some mobility since the Battlecruisers can teleport, even if they leave the Reapers behind with that.
I actually think they're in D. What do you think, Herman?
I mean, we can change the tier, right? Like,
yeah, we can change it later on.
Yeah, we can change it later if it turns out to be like, actually, on second thought,
they're awful. It turns out.
I mean, you just put them in E. If he put them in E, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Karax, where do we have him?
So good news, everyone. We have Repair Beam.
Right.
That's the first thing that comes to mind for me, ironically enough. Repair Beam and Unity Barrier, because those are things that just make your ally have durability buffs. And yourself have durability buffs. It makes your stuff tanky. It makes stuff not die because, Swann was too slow getting there. And it helps you and your ally. So that's great. You also have Spear of Adun, which is everywhere. But the reason I don't think of that first, for once, is because of the fact that Polarity, well, you'll just get a mix of units where you fire your orbital strike and half the targets you hit are actually misses because they were invulnerable. So that sucks. Spear of Adun is still really good. It still gives you the ability to shoot stuff from anywhere. You could always orbital, if you have a Reanimator that's yours to kill and you have vision of it, you don't need a unit there to kill it, you could just shoot it for orbital strikes.
Yes.
You also have Phoenixes, just like Artanis. Unfortunately, unless you're P2, it is quite expensive to get a hold of those, and you can't just warp them in order to be like, oh, there's a Reanimator there, summon a Phoenix and lift it. Send it to the heavens. You can't do that. You're not an Artanis. And you also have to, worry about getting out an army. So the Mirages of Karax are less of an argument than the Phoenixes of Artanis, but they are something that's quite good. And then past that, you have an army that, when A moved, will kill stuff. If you go straight for carriers, you will probably have problems in the early game. But if you just get even just zealots and then carriers, that's probably enough by itself if you are using your Spear of Adun correctly, and if you stall out the first objective, which honestly, for most commanders' sake, you probably want to stall out that first objective.
Yeah,
agree. In the case of almost everyone, it'll make your life a lot easier. It really makes this mission so much easier if you do so. It is unclear whether he is an A or a B, but I would say he is probably actually a B, because he's a little slow to get going, even with the extra time afforded by stalling things out.
Even with
and
passive chrono and super chrono? Unless you're advocating for the third prestige.
I think that whichever prestige you use, I don't think one has a particular advantage over the other, except for P1 is definitely worse than P0 here because you lose
Alright.
repair beam
Yeah.
on your army, and you don't want to be using buildings because buildings can't move, which means that if your ally moves and your buildings, they can't move, and
Phoenix
now you lose all
can't
those
recall buildings.
pointlessly. I know. It's awful. You even ruined Phoenix. How could you do this? Yeah. So basically, the summary is don't use P1. Don't do that. And yeah,
So
I don't know. I
B?
feel like it's B.
Alright. How about you, Herman?
Personally, I also put him in B, and I would recommend just use P2 and just mass sentinels, sentries, and the immortals probably. I think immortals might do really well
I think
here.
immortals are good too. Yeah.
Yeah, because like one shot is like 320 damage, and you can use two or just like or use some orbital strike on the reanimator, and then your orbital strike can also stun the reanimator if you upgrade the ability in the solar forge. Chrono boost really help you and your ally macro and get enough unit. Yeah, and P2's army is really cheap, and I think Immortal is just a little bit expensive than a little bit more expensive than Dragoons, right? Like it's really close, I think, in my mind. Probably like 250 minerals or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
250. Without the
Yeah,
prestige. With prestige, I think it's a bit, well, not quite 250, but
yeah, yeah. So yeah, just like F2, and A move, and multitask. You want to, yeah, you just use top bar to deal with the Reanimator properly. Yeah, if like anything coming home. But I mean, P2 doesn't have stack defense, but you do have some, but you do have the batteries. So batteries can heal batteries. So yeah.
all right. So both of you say B. I actually have an A because I was thinking second prestige, sentinels, carriers, super chrono, passive chrono, unity barrier, and revive on sentinels will just help you stay alive and just tank until your ally gets there eventually. But both of you say B, so we'll have him B. Kerrigan, where do we have him?
I think Kerrigan did really well this week. Because because of the Omega War.
Oh my god.
Yeah, you and your ally will. I mean, at least your ally's ground unit will have mobility, and if there is a remnant come, you just spawn you just summon a Omega Worm and let Kerrigan go there and kill the Reanimator. And if it's not yours, you can just. It's not like Phoenix.
Yes.
You can just teleport them. Yeah, but you can just tell.
You give them an option. Hey ally, you can use my worms.
Yeah, just come here and kill Reanimator. Yeah.
Plus his detection and tanking. So even if your ally is under fire,
and it has like 1,000 HP, I believe. Yeah.
2,000.
And it's vision everywhere. So if your ally has any kind
everywhere.
of thing where if they have vision, they can smite the Reanimator. Good news.
Yes.
Smite the Reanimator.
Helps
and you
Karax.
you don't even have to worry about finding the Reanimator. If you have vision of the entire map, you can see the Reanimator before it starts reanimating anything. You see it walking towards the stuff, and you can kill it before it even reanimates a single enemy.
100%.
Instead of finding out there's a Reanimator because stuff's coming out of that.
100%.
Yeah.
So where do you have him?
Like top A, I think, or maybe S though. But I mean, she does have a little bit disadvantage. Is that her army, like her army isn't really tanky. But she has Ultralisks and and talking about anti-air might be a problem. You just use maybe Hydralisk to do that. And yeah, I'll put her in like top 8. So yeah.
How about you, Sixbender?
Yep. He summed it up right. Kerrigan's top A. She is possibly S.
I'm
not convinced on S yet, but she's depending on other commanders. I don't think anyone's really S this week, but we might. She might end up in S once we get all the commanders in place. Even she might eke her way in there. So
Oh well, let's move on. Nova, where do we have him?
pretty good, I guess. Defense drone is really strong, like really, really strong. For helping your ally out on Polarity is what I've discovered, or what I discovered way back when I was bad at this game and I was having trouble with beating Polarity mutations. And Nova's a relatively new commander. Oh, I remember Nova being really a good pick for
Yeah,
helping an ally.
I'm still very
Um,
bad at this game, but I already know that.
I think that she doesn't have anything in particular that helps aside from that. She has global mobility, but it's on a 2-minute cooldown.
Yeah.
You could go P2 Nova.
He's will know.
Not a terrible idea, given that,
Oh.
like, what are you going to do? Griffin airstrike a wave so that you kill only your half and then say, all right, ally, yours now. Eh,
I may
you
or may
can,
not have done
and
that
the thing is,
before.
you can still even do that. P2 Nova just swaps the cooldowns. So now you have a 2-minute cooldown on Griffin airstrike and a 30-second cooldown on Griffin airlift instead of the reverse. The reality is you don't need a
down.
Griffin airstrike every 30 seconds. For reference, a Reanimator spawns every 50 seconds. So P2 Nova could actually be really good here, unironically.
Nice.
And in fact, I would say that I originally was thinking Nova B tier, but then I remembered P2, and P2 might actually even put her in A tier for P2 specifically.
Nova's an A tier because she's Phoenix.
I originally put her in B, but I forget P2, just like what we all do it. We all forget.
So both of you say A?
Yeah, I think okay.
All right. Raynor, where do we have him?
I think he's really terrible this week.
You think?
I was struggling with like dealing with Reanimator in the early game because I only have 2 top bars, and so if I use like P3 Banshees, that might be a solution, I guess.
So how the Jimmy top bar early game situation is a bit weird. You have at 4 minutes the Banshees come up, and then at 5 minutes the Hyperion comes up.
Yeah.
Now, if you have Banshee cooldown mastery and you're not
like
P3,
2 minutes, yeah,
then the Banshees will come up again at 6 minutes. So from 4 minutes to 7 minutes, you have top bar on the field constantly. So that's one option, is to just go Banshee cooldown reduction if you aren't doing P3. If you are doing P3, you really need Hyperion cooldown reduction for P3 to be good, I feel. And P3 is probably going to make it awkward in the early game to keep stuff on the field for Reanimators, but you're basically just going to rush out Banshees and rush Cloak for them. And you'll just make sure that they aren't cloaked when they don't have to be, because that Cloak energy will be very important for actually killing the Reanimators. And you'll basically use those Banshees to carry the early game before transitioning into probably Mass Battlecruiser. If you don't use P3, which I believe I personally wouldn't use P3 here, then
Lila did.
you can do the Banshees. You can do the Banshee cooldown. I think I would use P0 and go for a Bio Ball, and I would just stick with my ally, and we just have my Bio Ball and their army just A moving together. Personally,
That's what Lila did. He just went no prestige.
Yeah. I would prefer that personally, and I would use the Hyperion as my ability to just have something around the map if I need it. Kind of like Han and Horner, except my top bar is going to do more against this mutation. I think my Hyperion top bar is going to do more than their top bar and their battlecruiser army combined. The Hyperion is really good, by the way, just in case anyone forgot about that. And the thing that you can use for early game for Bioball is that if you're struggling with early game, I feel like a broken record. Might I recommend Marauders? They're good. Why do people forget Marauders are good? It's because they're not ladder players. What I usually do for early game when I need early game power with Jimmy, when I'm doing Bio Jimmy, is for 4 minutes at 4 minutes I have Banshees, at 5 minutes I have Hyperion. So the first 2 minutes after stuff starts happening, the top bar carries it, and then after that, you would be shocked how resilient a ball of just 12 Marauders and 3 or 4 medics.
Asterisk if it's Zergling based, make fire butts instead.
Yeah, if it's Zergling based, then you make
Firebuds.
Not instead, you make a mix, but like you still want Marauders.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it's Zerglings, add Firebats. But the point is, like a dozen thick boys with a couple medics, that takes on the whole early game. It really does. It's actually remarkable how effective it is at taking on the early game. If you add Marines on, you'll notice that the Marines just don't have enough health and they die. Marines are much more useful when you reach the mid game and you have your like 7 barracks, and now you have a critical mass of Marines where their hit scan becomes much more important. And now you make mostly Marines and you just walk over everything. I think that you're kind of like Han and Horner, but your army is better. Your army is more durable. Your army is more replaceable because of orbitals going, mules go haha burr. And your top bar is better. You're Han and Horner, but you're just kind of better at everything. Oh yeah, and you can heal your ally with medics, which is always appreciated by several commanders. I would personally put Jimmy in C.
Okay.
Even better than
Alarak?
Alarak?
Yeah.
That makes me feel better about how few kills I got in my game with Lila.
How do you get fewer kills? It's Polarity.
I know. It's Lila. He just makes stuff happen. I have no idea how he does it. Well, how about you, Herman?
Well, I never saw about the Marauder. Yeah, I kind of forget how bio works really well at here. Actually,
I love
I was
bio, but
just struggling with the Reanimator. Like I was thinking like before I sleep every day, like how can raiders go snipe the Reanimator? And I just fall asleep. And when I wake up, I still didn't figure out at all. Yeah, I kind of forget like if we use P0, we should get the reduction cooldown for Banshee for the top bar Banshee. Yeah, because I always just choose Hyperion cooldown. Yeah.
For Bio Raynor, if you want, you can also go for a drop pod haste for units that are newly produced, get bonus attack speed and move speed. You do have a slower tech ramp up then, so the early game you have to have a tighter build order, but it's still doable. And if you're confident in your macro, what that'll mean is that if a Reanimator spawns, you can literally just take all your barracks, put the rally point on top of the Reanimator, and a bunch of really stoked bio just drops down and starts shooting 8 times a second.
So, Herman, what do you have?
Well,
Where do you have Raynor?
Put him in C though. Yeah, yeah.
I actually had Raynor in D, but it still fascinates me how Stixbender was talking so much about all of the options Raynor has, and that makes me wonder: is he gonna put him in B? Oh, C. Okay. Statboy, where do we have him?
He can make his allies heal. He can make his allies fast, and his stuff is very tanky. You just basically it's basically you do the same thing of you and your ally working in a ball together. You just make sure that ball is tanky and fast. You do have to be on top of Steadilites. This mission in particular is a bit of a problem because of how fast it goes. Like that top, the third terminal in the top middle of the map. The mission gets there pretty fast, and if you're not on top of Steadilites, you can get caught without stat zones up there, and then
Why?
you
Just
lose,
activate Gary Zone. Fly there.
Yeah, well, you activate Gary Zone, fly there, and put down Steadilites. It's a thing. You have options. It's just be on top of your Steadilites. If you get caught without them, that'll make things go south really fast. If you don't mess that up, yeah, you just have solid ally supplement. You have great power level right from the beginning. Like as soon as Gary spawns at 4 minutes, you're strong because Gary is like an insanely powerful hero unit. I would say he's A tier.
Why not S?
The way he buffs his ally isn't enough to justify S, and I honestly would say he's less supplementing to his ally than Nova, even, honestly, I would say. His advantage over Nova is that his hero unit can like win his half of everything. You technically don't even need units if you have Gary.
How about you, Herman?
I also put him in A. I think the only thing you need to like be careful when you playing Statboy is not F2 at all the time. Like sometimes you still need to go to sniper Reanimator. He's really good.
Let's have him in A. Stukov, where do we have him?
Actually, I don't think he did really well this week. Top bar has too much cooldown, and you can't really promise your
infrastructure
actually kill Reanimator. And the Stukov's armies, it took a long time to big amount of armies. I would put him in D.
D?
Yeah.
That's pretty low. How about you, Stixbender?
I would certainly lean towards P3. Infest structure, you should be getting your armory and getting the upgrade in the command center. That means it's 50% more broodlings. And at that point, basically, if the reanimator's in your structure, it should be dead. You also don't necessarily even need top bar to deal with reanimators, because if you have P3 and your river of infested, then the reanimator has to somehow not get caught in that river. Stukov is the most benefited commander from the concept of like keeping that like wall in the middle area and then later breaking that wall and keeping all that to funnel reanimators into the same path that you're going. You have strong top bar. Your Alexander top bar gives a massive damage reduction aura just to give even more tankiness. Your infest structure means you can constantly be spitting out broodlings to tank more. Basically, Stukov can do tons of tanking for his ally. I would say that Stukov is a high A tier.
My only concern with Stukov is getting creep to the third terminal, which I've already addressed earlier in one of my previous tier lists, that we can just have overlords manually spread creep in that direction, which will speed up the creep process so that you can have forces there. That's also the reason why I recommend the first prestige of mech, so you can actually have an appreciable force faster, because the third prestige requires a lot of building up time and you need to kind of stall.
I admittedly forgot about that terminal problem because of the fact that I have literally made a habit of I just make a third command center and say, go command center, make creep.
That is also a thing you can do, yeah.
That's literally what I do. Okay, high A is probably a little high because he's the only one who doesn't have any supporting abilities. Yeah, I think B is more accurate, to be honest. But like, he's definitely got stuff to work.
I don't think he ramps up fast enough to warrant A. I think B is fair.
Yeah.
B. Just go with B. Yeah.
All right, Swann. Where do we have him?
Swann is S tier for carrying, not because you carry as Swann, but because you carry by telling your ally to go pick Swann. Your ally only has to kill half the stuff on the map anyways, and the P1 laser drill by itself can almost kill half the stuff. So if your ally is completely worthless, but there's a P1 Swann who upgrades their laser drill, you might just win the mutation anyways. If you are the one who's carrying and you're playing as Swann, he doesn't have anything in particular that makes it easy for him to carry, honestly. Like, you don't have anything to help. If the Swann is the good player and the ally is the weaker player, then I don't see anything that makes Swann particularly good. But if the weak player is the Swann and the strong player is the other commander, and if you think you're losing this mutation because you're just bad and your ally is trying to carry you, but you're too bad to be carried, then pick Swann so that your ally can carry you. The biggest thing that the biggest advantage he has, if you are the one who's carrying as the Swann, is that, well, if there's a reanimator and it's yours to kill, it will die. You don't have to like go throw army over there. You just need vision of it and it will die.
Yeah.
And with P1, you can even slow the reanimator. You still need vision for that. So I would say he's honestly probably like B or C tier even. It's one time, everybody!
How about you, Herman? How about you, Herman?
No. I mean, definitely you want to use P1. Yeah. Don't use other prestige because your top bar is like
it'll only kill half
the other
stuff.
top bar is not good. Yeah.